all of a sudden it was like the evil just filled the room. I started praying. I instantly knew, like, I mean, we're an hour into this thing, and I instantly knew this thing just started. Like, this party just started, and I made a huge mistake. Instantly knew, like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Oh my, dude, instantly, God have mercy, God have mercy, Lord forgive me. I started praying in tongues, and it would be like, it was bad, but I'd stay there, and then I noticed if I stopped, I would feel like darkness consuming me again. I'd get pressure on my chest, like I'd feel like I was dying.
Now, for context, how long does it usually, a trip on mushroom, how long is it usually?
A mushroom trip is usually about 5 to 6 hours, I would say, 5 to 7 hours, I think, depending how many you have.
Yeah.
And like I said, this dose was, in my eyes, was just a regular dose. Like, that was what I took. And I had taken much larger doses than this. So this, I'm getting encircled. My very first thought, once I was aware of what was happening, like, I felt like I was encircled by death, and, you know, death ensnared me, encircled me. And my first thought was, Josh, who are you gonna call? You can't call a lawyer in this situation. I can't call my mommy or my daddy. I can't, you know what I mean? I can't call my pastor. Who am I gonna call in this situation? There's no amount of money. Like, I was aware of the huge mistake that I just made. Like, this wasn't, you know, some peccadillo or you know, little mistake. This was like, I was aware immediately, you just made a huge error and you're in big trouble. Like, that was how I knew in the spirit. I just opened the door and legally gave this rights to happen right now. I agreed with this. Well, I'm praying, and it's getting more and more intense. It's getting worse and worse, and I'm feeling like, all right, I need to get out of here. And I remembered my wife was at dinner with some friends. She was coming back. So I'm like, oh, I got to get out this atmosphere. Maybe if I leave the atmosphere, it'll start getting better. So I call my wife. I'm like, you got to come get me. By the time she gets there, about 20, 30 minutes later, I'm like in full distress. Like, it was not, like, all I can tell you is it just felt like darkness was just caving in on me, and I was dying. By the time I got in the car, I couldn't breathe. My wife, she didn't know what was going on. So she's like, trying to have a conversation, like, what's going on? I'm like, Jackie, at this point, I was starting to get pulled into the spirit realm. Like, I was leaving my body, and I would just be in this void of blackness, and I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was I felt like I was dying, and the only thing that would make me feel like I would live was to pray. And so I'm like, Jackie, I can't talk right now, just pray for me, like, you don't understand. And in the car ride, she was like, oh my gosh, are you, because I couldn't breathe. I was like, I was dying. I felt like I was dying, and I was like, just pray, I can't talk. Like, anytime I would come into my flesh, I'd feel like I was dying, and I had to go back into the spirit. Like, I'm going in and out of my body. Like, I'm just like getting shot out into this like black void, and then I'm coming back in my body and feeling like I'm dying. I get back to my house, and this is where everything took a turn. I get into my bedroom, and I'm just on the floor, and at this point, I'm like fully just in the spirit realm. I'm leaving my body, and I'm just gone. And what happens is I found myself floating in this black abyss, and I didn't really know what was going on at first. And then vision started to come to it. Next thing I knew, I was in a hand. I was in this big hand, just laying there, helpless. Like I said, like, I knew, like, there's nothing no one can do anything for me. No amount of money, nothing. You are here on your own account. You're in trouble. And I said, oh my gosh. When the Bible says that to fall into the hand of the living God is a dreadful and fearful thing, it's not a joke. It would, like, fear is not an accurate word for how it felt. It was just such a degree of helplessness that I can't explain it. Fear is not the right word, but I'm in this hand, and all of a sudden on my right hand I just see like 20, 30 demons, and on my left it was like the kingdom of heaven. I can't explain it. The kingdom was almost veiled in a sense. It was like if you put like a real thin white sheet over something, you could still see what everything is, but the fullness of its glory wasn't revealed. I'm in a hand in the middle of this abyss. I knew hell was under me. It was just a dark abyss of blackness, but I knew if I got dropped, like, I was done. All these demons are on my right side, and they step like they're speaking to heaven. I'm in the middle, like in the hand, like, oh my gosh. And they said, this one that was like bigger than the other one stood up, and he said, we're tired of this kid. They said, he keeps coming to our kingdom and taking people out. And then he came back and ate off our table. Once he said that, it was like everything hit me. Like the fullness of my mistake was like, oh my gosh, what did you do? And then at that point, it was like, I'm still not being able to breathe. I'm still not being, like, I'm in full-blown fear. Now I'm seeing this stuff happen right in front of my eyes. I can't breathe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, please have mercy, please have mercy. And see, what was happening was like, if I came back to my body, it would feel like I was dying. And I knew I had to go back and like intercede for myself in the spirit. It was like, I'm telling my wife, because she keeps trying to have a conversation, like, what's going on? Talk to me. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I can't be in here right now. I have to go back. Like, I couldn't be in the world, like in my flesh. I told my wife, I'm like, you don't understand what's happening right now. Just intercede for me, please. Like, I'm trying to explain what's happening, but I can't talk. I couldn't breathe. And so I'm in this situation for a while. I don't know how long, but for a good amount of time, it's like they're having conversations that I can't hear. There was a court, I was in like the courts of heaven. Like there was a court case happening and I'm getting persecuted by the devil. I can't hear what's going on. And all I know is I'm terrified. I could feel my organs shriveling up. I could feel myself, life just fully leaving my body. Like I knew that no matter how much water I drank, I would still be thirsty. I knew that if I got dropped from this hand, that these demons were gonna like take me, or I was just gonna drop into an abyss of hell or something. Like, I wish I could find the words for how helpless I felt. Like I was in a hand and knew that there was nothing I could do, and that these demons were coming to get me. Like they were like, this kid invited us here. He broke a law, and like this was a major infraction, and we're coming to get justice on this. That's how it felt. And so I feel my body like dying. And the other thing was that fighting was tiring. So I'm like in this hand, I'm pleading out to God, like, God have mercy, God forgive me, like what, like I'm sorry. But I was so exhausted, like I can't really explain it. There's a psalm that says, in your hand I've been spent. And that's how I felt. I was completely like void of energy. And so at one point, after like an hour or two of this, I said, God, you know what? I believe you're just. I said, Jesus, I made a big mistake, but you're my Lord, my Savior. I said, I give up. I surrender to your hand. And I went limp, and I started feeling myself dying. Like I started feeling myself fully passing over, and my physical body started dying. And then something in me told me, like, no, you keep fighting. Like you have to keep fighting. So I'm like, and this is the other thing, is that God literally hands you every breath you have. No joke, intentionally hands you by mercy every hand you get. So I'm in this hand, I'm dead. I have nothing I'm just empty, dead. And I started seeing breath like come to me. I don't know how to explain it, except I knew where God was, and he started sending me breath, because I couldn't breathe, and I'd look over and see like breath coming to me, and I'd go and then it would be like a minute before I got another breath, and I started feeling breaths come to me, and I couldn't breathe again, and then I'd be like suffocating, shriveling up, dying, and then I'd get a breath again. And so this goes on for a while, and then I said it wasn't like releasing though, like it wasn't getting better, I'm just fighting. Then all of a sudden I said, I need to be here for my family. I said, like, I don't know what to do. I've cried out for mercy. I said, God, I need to be here for my family, and for like every person in my life that you've called me to like help. Forget about me. I need to. As soon as I started saying that, I started feeling the pressure of like death start to release me.